Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for Sigmascape version 1.0 Savage, also known as O5S. This is the first Savage instance made available by patch 4.2 in Final Fantasy XIV Rise of a New Sun. My name is Ms. Tech and I'll be your raid guide. In Savage mode, there are two differences you will notice immediately. First, the side railings of the train car are gone and players have to face the danger of falling off at all times. Second is an ability called Connectivity. This ability will place a stacking damage debuff on the boss's primary target if they are outside of melee range. Low stacks of Connectivity is fairly easy to heal through, but anything higher than 5 can get deadly. Connectivity stacks will disappear as soon as the target returns to melee range, and as such, the primary target will need to stay at melee range as much as possible throughout the encounter to reduce excess damage. Using knockback immunities to your advantage during certain mechanics is also useful to avoid extra stacks. As the encounter begins, 2 square telegraphs will appear on the platform. Players will need to move out of these before the ghost boxes appear or they will die. Once they spawn, the square barriers around each ghost act as a solid barrier that cannot be traversed. You'll use this to your advantage soon. Immediately after, 4 players will be marked with these orange prey markers and eventually be targeted by 4 moving spotlights. These spotlights will chase their respective player for a short time before settling in place and then casting. Similar to normal mode, these spotlights will eradicate any ghosts or ghost boxes they hit. In Savage mode, you'll use this to your advantage throughout the encounter to handle certain mechanics and even clean up the platform if necessary. A good rule of thumb is to always allow at least 1 ghost box to stay active to handle incoming mechanics. This first set of spotlights can be dropped off by players anywhere on the platform. The spotlights can also be stacked in one area to facilitate easy dodging if you so choose. Throughout the encounter, Phantom Train will cast Diabolical Whistle. This attack will summon one of 3 possible ghost encounters that players will need to handle accordingly. The first Diabolical Whistle summons a single ghost on either the left or the right side of the platform. This ghost will cast All in the Mind, a massive knockback attack that will push everyone on the platform from the side it has spawned on. Players will need to use the available ghost boxes as a barrier to avoid getting knocked off the side. You may also use knockback immunities to avoid this completely. Next up, Doom Strike will target the main tank for a heavy-hitting magic Tankbuster. Cooldown and heal through this as necessary. Head on will have the boss backing up and then ramming the platform for massive proximity-based physical damage and causing a knockback. Players will need to move away from this area to avoid death and reduce excess damage. At the same time, 2 players will be targeted for Diabolical Wind by these green circle markers. To handle these 2 mechanics at once, I would recommend the 2 Diabolical Wind players move to the back corners of the platform, while the rest of the raid moves to the back center. Once head-on hits and players are knocked back, this positioning will ensure the Diabolical Wind damage is spread appropriately and not hitting any innocent bystanders. Immediately after, Acid Rain will cast. This does high raid-wide magic damage, and healers will need to be ready with shields and heals. Next up, we'll see the second Diabolical Whistle option. This will spawn multiple ghosts in a random pattern on both the left and right sides of the platform. These ghosts will slowly move across the platform and disappear once they hit the other side. If a player is hit by one of these ghosts, they will be teleported inside of the passenger car and forced to destroy a ghost ad before they're allowed to return to the main fight. To avoid this, players will need to dodge the ghost as necessary until they disappear. While you're dodging, 2 players will also be marked for another 2 spotlights. You'll have to dodge these during this time as well. Next up is Diabolical Headlamp. This will mark up a random player with this fancy line stack-up marker. The damage of this attack will be shared among anyone standing in a straight line with the affected player. To facilitate this, we have all players move to the middle of the platform during this cast. Remember, you don't need to be physically stacked on the affected player, you merely need to be in a straight line from the boss to the player to share the damage. Headlamp damage will also knock back players, and standing in the very center of the platform will ensure you don't accidentally get knocked off the platform. The third Diabolical Whistle will show you the last possible ghost option. This will summon 2 ghosts on a random side of the platform that will tether to 2 players. These ghosts will chase their tethered players, attempting to suck them into the passenger car. To avoid this, players will use the 2 spotlights that will soon target 2 players to eradicate their tethered ghosts. Spotlight players should force their spotlights in easy-to-reach places, while the tethered players force their ghosts into a spotlight to destroy them. Next up, Diabolical Light will target a tank and a healer with these massive prey markers. These will eventually drop down proximity-based damage markers under each affected player. To avoid excess damage and maintain uptime on the boss, the Diabolical Light players should move to the back of the platform to drop off their markers. When this attack marks up the main tank, the off tank tank will need to be ready to provoke to avoid having the main tank deal with the excess connectivity stacks while they move to the back of the platform. A Doom Strike will also target the main tank immediately after as well, so be ready with those cooldowns and heals. One more Acid Rain to heal through and the boss will begin the second phase. You can skip a few of these last mechanics if you manage to push the boss below 70% early. In the second phase, Phantom Train will come up alongside the platform and spawn a number of putrid passengers. Tanks should pick these up immediately while everyone else AoEs them down. They'll throw out small column attacks that can be avoided. All 4 DPS players will be targeted for Diabolical Wind and should spread as necessary. Immediately after, the tanks and the healers will be targeted for another set of Diabolical Wind and should also spread. Once the adds are destroyed, players will be able to jump on top of Phantom Train and attack its Doom Chimney for extra damage on the boss. This chimney doesn't have a lot of health, so I would recommend saving your cooldowns for the upcoming mechanic. Once the chimney is destroyed, players will be returned to the original platform where they will be afflicted with throttle and slowly begin to asphyxiate. 8 ghosts will eventually spawn in a random pattern on the outer edge of the platform. The first 4 ghosts will be 2 huge ones with black cloaks and 2 tiny ones with purple cloaks. Immediately after, 4 medium-sized ghosts with red cloaks will spawn. These ghosts will move across the platform at varying speed and disappear once they reach the other side. Players will need to step into an appropriate ghost to be transported to the passenger car and avoid death from the throttle debuff. The type of ghost you enter determines what type of ad you'll need to deal with inside of the passenger car, so it's imperative that players only enter the appropriate ghost for their role or they will probably die. Tanks will enter using the 2 black ghosts. On the inside, they'll need to pop heavy cooldowns to survive true agony while destroying the ad. Ideally, you should be able to destroy the ad before the second cast of true agony hits, or you will probably die. Healers will enter using the 2 purple ghosts. On the inside, their ad will apply a healing debuff on them and periodically deal high damage. The ad will also be afflicted with a bleeding debuff that will kill it over time. Healers will need to heal themselves until the ad kills itself to return to the platform. Damage dealers will enter using the 4 red ghosts. On the inside, they'll have a short time to destroy their ad before it enrages. Once your respective ad is destroyed, you'll be able to use the ethereal stream to return to the platform. Another ghost box will spawn on the platform at this time, and eventually the mechanics that you've seen in the first phase will repeat with increased overlap. First, the 2 healers will be marked for Diabolical Light while another player is marked up for Headlamp. The light players will need to move to the back of the platform while everyone else lines up in the middle to share the damage of Headlamp. Immediately after, 2 players will be marked for Spotlights, and you can drop these in such a way to clear the platform of any ghost boxes you might find to be obstructing you too much. Just remember to always have at least one up to act as a barrier if needed. Next up, Doom Strike will target the main tank. Cooldown and heal through this as necessary. The next Diabolical Whistle will be Tether Ghosts with only 1 Spotlight player. Have the Spotlight player drop off their Spotlight in an easy to reach location, while the 2 tethered players force their ghosts into it. Another Diabolical Whistle will cast, and this time players will need to be ready to avoid getting knocked off by the single ghost. Use knockback immunities or run to the appropriate side of a ghost box to avoid death. During this time, a player will be targeted for Headlamp again. To handle this combo, players should first ensure they are safe from the knockback. Immediately after the knockback, as soon as you can move, you'll need to move into the center of the platform to share that Headlamp damage. Moving to the center as much as possible here will ensure you don't find yourself at a strange angle and getting yourself accidentally knocked off. Next up, Head-On will force players to move to the back of the platform to avoid excess damage. Immediately after, 2 players will be targeted for Spotlights and 3 more ghost boxes will spawn. These players can use their Spotlights to clear some of the ghost boxes off of the platform to form room for upcoming mechanics. The next Diabolical Whistle will spawn multiple ghosts on either side of the platform. At the same time, a player will be marked up for Headlamp. To handle this combo, players will first need to stand in the center to share Headlamp damage, and then immediately dodge the ghosts as they move across the platform. A few moments after, 4 players will be marked up for Diabolical Wind, and they'll need to spread out as necessary to avoid excess damage. Next up, yet another Diabolical Whistle. This will spawn 2 tethered ghosts and 2 Spotlights on players. 2 players will also be marked up for Diabolical Wind. It is possible that the tethered players get Diabolical Wind here. Make sure you spread those wind markers apart while you lead the tethered ghosts into the Spotlight as necessary. Up next, a tank and a healer will be marked for Doom Light, and they'll need to move to the back of the platform to drop off their proximity markers. Remember to tank swap if necessary. Cooldown and heal through the next Tankbuster and Acid Rain. Next, you'll need to line up for another Headlamp, and then 2 players will have to handle 2 Spotlights. Heal through another Acid Rain, and then get ready for the next Diabolical Whistle. You'll deal with Tethered Ghosts and Diabolical Wind first. Then, a tank and healer will need to move their lights to the back while also healing through Acid Rain and dealing with yet another Tankbuster. Another Diabolical Whistle with the Pushback Ghost, and a Headlamp to line up for immediately after. Another head-on with 2 Diabolical Winds, followed by another Acid Rain to heal through. Yet another Diabolical Whistle with Ghost to dodge while lining up for Headlamp, and then spreading those 4 winds apart. At this point, the boss will cast his Hardened Rage, Saintly Beam, which will destroy anyone on the main platform. Fun fact, if you happen to be in a passenger car during this time, you can survive the enrage and deal a bit more damage to him once you pop back out. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Up next, we'll look at Sigmascape version 2.0 Savage. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.